Happy Monday, everybody. This is going to be one of our last classes, if not the last, I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of stuff happening. I know you have field trips, you have different activities with your other teachers. So I'm almost positive that this is your last day, I think. But I'm going to be there at school tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I have to be there because there will be exams and we don't know yet who's gonna take the exam or not, but I'm prepared to be there. All right, everyone. So today we're just gonna go over the grammar that you studied throughout this year. Some of you will remember, some of you will not, but then you will have your memory all refreshed by doing this. So let's take a look at this one. I feel like a lot of people have problems with it, even though we have gone over the whole thing. So we're going to start with and an, right? We've done this in class before. A lot of you will remember. So here you have my wife's and you have three options: MTV presenter, ABC presenter, CNN presenter. I know that most of you think in terms of consonants and vowels, right? You think, okay, so before consonants, I use and before vowels, I use an. But it's not as simple as it is when you have to hear, you have to listen. You have to listen to the sound that is made. If it sounds like a vowel, you will still use an, even though what you see is a consonant. So the first one, MTV presenter, you should be an MTV presenter. Let's take a look at this. Okay. She is an MTV presenter. Because here when I say am, the first sound that comes out of my mouth is a vowel sound. It is all about the sound and not necessarily what you see. The next one, ABC presenter. Not only do you see a vowel, you also hear a vowel. So in this case, it would also be an ABC presenter. But when you look at CNN, you see a consonant and you hear a consonant. So she is a CNN presenter. She's a CNN presenter. So you have a before consonant sounds, and I'm going like this because you have to hear the sound. It's not just about what you see. And although we've talked about this very often, and I'm correcting your papers, I'm still seeing a lot of this. Hopefully after today, you will remember. Next one. Oh, we've done all of this together. Oh, I wonder if I can. There we go. I want you to look at this now. Find the incorrect sentence. I'm going to make this bigger because I don't know how big it's coming off on your screen. You have 3 options here. Don't forget to buy bread. If it's correct, you don't mark it because we're looking for the incorrect sentence. The next one, they have an article before bread, but bread is a non-count noun. I know it sounds kind of crazy in your head to think, well, hey, I can count bread, right? I can say 1 loaf of bread, 1 slice of bread, 1 piece of bread. But when you pay attention to that, then you will know that I'm not counting the bread, I'm counting pieces of it or slices of it. So it's the second one that's incorrect. Buy some bread would have been correct. Here we go. Usual problem, a or an. Please type this in the chat box. I have to see that you're typing it. I have to see it. Let's take a look at it. Usual. That's the word. I'm going to write some words here for you. Usual, uniform, yellow boat, yuppie executive. I want you to look at these words before you answer. Usual. So a lot of you wrote a, right? A lot of you wrote an, because you're thinking, hey, this is a vowel, isn't it? Well, it is a vowel in written form, but when you hear the sound y, usual, the same sound here, y, uniform, the same sound here, y, yellow, the same sound here, y, yuppie. That sound, y, is a semi-vowel. It is not a vowel, it is not a consonant. Semi or semi vowel. And before these sounds, you should always use a. A usual problem. A usual problem. A uniform. A yellow boat. A yuppie executive. And this may be a little bit difficult, even for native speakers. Throughout my life, living in the United States, in California, having lots of friends from the United States and talking to Americans all the time, I noticed that even native speakers sometimes use the wrong article here. So when you get this right all the time, you're doing better than a lot of native speakers. That should tell you something about the level of your education. Let's take a look at this. So here it should be a usual problem. You. So a young man. Now here when I say unusual, what sound do I hear first? That's a vowel sound. An unusual young man. A useful piece of advice. So this sound here, you always use a before it. The same thing with European, right? It's not E, but European. So European city. Very important to pay attention to these details. Just give me 1 second to look for something for you. We are going to have a couple of rounds of Quizlet Live, so I hope your phones are charged. I hope your phones are charged for it. Just to test one more time how much you have learned. Okay. So it should be a usual problem, a young man, an unusual young man, a useful piece of advice, a European city, a university professor, an English university, a Canadian university. So you hear k, k. The sound is of a consonant sound. And here you have something that you have to think about because you have the word our with a H, right? H is a consonant, isn't it? But H is a consonant. But it's silent in this word, so it's an hour, an honest man, an hourly rate. So every time the H is silent, you will still use an, because the first sound that you hear is a vowel, all right? Now let's go back to where it says grammar. We're not going to go over all of them, just a few of them. Adjectives. Adjectives. I'm not sure how many of you remember all of it. So before we do the actual exercise, I want to hear, what is an adjective? Give me an example of an adjective. Please type in the chat box. Beautiful is an adjective. Big is an adjective. Interesting, another adjective. Large is an adjective. Small is an adjective. So those are adjectives. Now let's take a look at the exercise here. I don't know how much of it you can see. Perhaps I'll make it so it's bigger on the screen. So here, Billy is the. So here you have lots of different adjectives. The fastest runner in town. And then you have better, least, further, more famous, worst. When you talk about a runner, somebody running, you would probably think of how fast does he run? He runs so fast that he is the fastest runner in town. So fastest is the one. Things can only get, so here you have some more adjectives. More famous, least, better, fastest, further, and worst. Please type in the chat box which one you think is correct. When things are bad, when things are going wrong, when things are not doing so fantastically well, they can only get better. It was the worst day of my life. So you say something is bad, then you can compare two things and say, peppers are worse than tomatoes. Because I prefer tomatoes, so I'm going to say worse. Let me give you the example here so you can see. Peppers are worse than tomatoes. So the spelling here is worse, worse with S-E when you're comparing two things. When you compare one thing, for example, peppers are the worst type of spice I have ever tasted in my life. So usually when you talk about one thing, you're singling that thing out of an entire group. So I'm talking about everything that I've tasted in my life. That is a group. There is a large amount of things. When you compare one, you single it out of everything, you use the worst. And please take a look at the spelling, the worst. The next one, please type in the chat box. It's very important that I see that you're typing the answers. So here you have the word least, more famous, fastest, better, worst, or further. If I'm talking about fame, who is more famous, Ralph or his brother? Or if I'm talking about, when I'm talking about two things, I'm going to use either more, for instance, this remote control is more expensive than that one. So I'm comparing this with that. Two things. More expensive. More beautiful. Usually with words that are longer, you use more. But I digress. Here you have to choose the best one. Please type in the chat box. Is it least, more famous, fastest, better, worst, or further? You're comparing two brothers. If you wrote more famous, you are right. Now the next one, I'm actually just going to complete it for you because it is not only an example here for you to use the adjectives in the comparative or superlative form, but it is also an idiomatic expression. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's when somebody's telling a lie and they say, for example, I can lift 500 kilos with my finger. Nothing could be further from the truth. It is a lie. It is not true. We're gonna move on from this. Now I'm just gonna give you sentences and you're gonna write them in the chat box. I'm gonna give you sentences. You're gonna type them in the chat box. So I'm going to write the sentence in English, and you're going to type the sentence in Norwegian in the chat box. I'm not sure if you're using your phone, then you're going to be doing something like this. But I would prefer that whenever we did things like that, that you actually use the computer so you can type it. The sentence is, I have never been there before. I want you to type this sentence in Norwegian into the chat box. I had never been there before. Next sentence. I have been there twice. I have been there twice. So the first one, this is what you should have typed for the first one. The next one, I have been there twice. The word twice is the same as 2 times. Twice. That's the same as 2 times. Now you're going to type the next sentence. She is studying. This is a little tricky. She is studying. Please type that in the chat box. She is studying. If you wrote this here, if you wrote this, it is correct. But if you wrote this, this is a better way of saying it. Why when I say she is studying, in Norwegian, you can translate it to the same thing as when I say she studies. But there is a difference, and I see a lot of Norwegians using it in the wrong way. I see a lot of Norwegians who don't see the difference between I am eating and I eat. What is the difference? The main difference is, and if you think about it this way, it will be easy for you to keep it in mind. I eat oranges every day. I never eat mangoes in Norway. I sometimes sleep until 8 o'clock in the morning. You see what I'm doing? Sometimes, always, never. Those adverbs of time tell me that I'm talking about habits, things that I normally do, things that I don't always do. That's when I use I study. So when I say she is studying, it means at the moment, right now. But when I say she studies, she sometimes studies. She always studies. She never studies. Those are the basic differences. I don't know if you're going to take away this particular message from this experience, but it would be nice if you did, because I see, I often hear Norwegians using studying, eating, working, when they shouldn't be using it. For instance, if I say I work as a teacher, that's what I do, that's my occupation, that's what I do for a living, that is my profession, that is my job. But if I say I am working as a teacher, it means temporary. It's not something I'm always going to do, it's just something that I'm doing now. Something for you to think about. Okay. I'm going to give you a few sentences more for you to type in the chat box. Now we're going to do the opposite. I'm going to give you the sentence in Norwegian. I want you to type that sentence in the chat box. Based on what I just told you. Jeg ser på TV akkurat nå. I want you to write this in English now. Think about what I just told you. I am watching TV right now is the correct way to translate this. And why is that? Why is that? Whenever I talk about something that's happening at this very moment, I'm going to use ing. I am watching TV. I am eating right now. When I say hun spiser aldri kake, it's not about something that's happening right now. Type it in English. So here, you're not going to write she's eating because it's not right now. It's not happening right now. You're going to write she never eats cake. The next sentence. Han dricker van nå. Think about what I just told you. If something is happening right now, or if it's something that never happens or happens once in a while, usually the adverbs never, always, sometimes, every day, those adverbs, it means that when you use those, you're not going to use eating, speaking, nothing like that. For instance, I always drink water when I cough. I always drink water when I cough. I can always drink water when I cough, so that's always. Right now, I am drinking water. So those are two separate things. Always, I always drink, and I am drinking. Now the next sentence, please type in the chat box. Han drikker van nå. Should be, he is drinking water now. All right, so now is the time when I'm going to ask everybody to get their phones out, please. Get your phones out. Get your phones out because we're going to do Quizlet Live. I'm going to put the code in the chat box, and when I put the code in, then you can start. There's going to be either a little bit of a delay, or maybe we're going to be finished way before it finishes on the screen. But don't worry about it. Just keep playing, because it's a pre-recorded version of Quizlet that you're going to be seeing on the screen. So please keep playing.